What's up, fight fans? I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. This is Cage Side Seat on MMA Weekly, bringing you the best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport from the best seat in the house. And man, am I pumped. UFC Vegas 11, the chosen one, Tyron Woodley, the former welterweight champ, taking on Colby Covington. Chaos, everything around him. It's unbelievable. Black Lives Matter against MAGA and all the storylines that go along with it. But you can throw all that away. That's fighters making money and fighters standing up for what they believe in. I really respect Tyron Woodley for what he's doing. I also respect Colby Covington for what he's doing because, hey, you only get one life and we got to live it our way, right? But one thing's for sure, two extremely talented fighters, two of the best in the world at 170, stepping in the octagon this weekend. So excited for that one and the rest of the card. Cowboy Cerrone's on this card against Nico Price. Mackenzie Dern, I can't believe what a card this is. So excited for this one this weekend. And equally excited to introduce you to a new weekly segment we're going to have here on MMA Weekly with Cage Side Seat. We're going to do picks. We're going to handicap the fights for you. And to do that for us, we want to bring in our guy, and I've been working with him for years. That's why I call him my guy, Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports. He's hit 16 of 19 winners this year on UFC fight cards, and his percentages over the years, NFL, college football, NBA, college basketball, Major League Baseball, you name it, it's been off the charts. He's over 20 plus years on some of the biggest radio stations in America, picking winners. Kind of like Sam Rothstein, you know what I'm saying? So that's one of those things that you're really excited about. If you're me, to welcome aboard Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports. Lee, so happy to have you, man. I want to just have you give the audience a little bit of background information on yourself and what it is like to be you, how you got involved in mixed martial arts.
Thanks so much. Pleasure to be with you. Didn't think I was going to get into MMA, years ago. I started off playing college football, handicapping football and basketball, and always liked MMA. I watched every card, started betting on it probably about a year ago. Employee of mine, Steve, a amateur MMA fighter, had been betting on it and coming over to my house every week in the man cave and watching the fights, and he kept telling me, we got to sell MMA, and I started betting his fights a year ago after I think he showed me about 8 or 9 cards in a row where he showed a profit, I think a little over 75% of them. And we're not just talking about winning. When we lost, we would usually lose by split decisions. You're never sure, what's going to happen with the judges. But very rarely were our fighters getting knocked out. I mean, if you're betting, let's say 5 fights in a night, and you're having your fighters get knocked out in 3 or 4 fights, you got a real problem. So we were usually losing by split decision, or just, some incredible, submission move that we hadn't seen before from a fighter. So it took me a long time. And then once we got into it and we got into the pandemic, I joined him and I had some catching up to do. So starting in May, when these fights started off and there was nothing else, didn't have time, wasn't studying for basketball, wasn't the NBA playoffs. I was probably watching 3 or 4 fights from every fighter to get caught up. So I'm caught up and I'm a part of the process now. And we've done a good job. We put out 19 cards since the start of May, and we've won 16 of the 19 cards.
Now, that's unbelievable. We were just sharing that with the audience, Lee. Your success record over the years has kept you on some of the biggest stations around the country, kept your clients winning at ParamountSports.com, and you got a special offer that you're going to give for our audience, and we're going to get to that as we keep going a little bit later on in the segment. But, man, huge fight card this weekend. You just heard me mention it. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the transition for you, coming from football, coming from basketball, coming from baseball, boxing over the years, and now handicapping MMA. And what is it like? What goes into handicapping our sport?
So this is what I do. I like to watch at least one fight where a fighter, everything goes right and he wins, minimum. And I like to watch a fight where it's close and it's usually a decision. And then I also like to watch a fight where something went wrong or everything went wrong. So if you watch, just like football, if you watch those 3 types of fights, I think you can get an idea what a fighter's all about. Now, it is a little bit tougher when you get some of these fighters coming up. This summer, they were bringing up fighters. I mean, guys that had never fought in the MMA. There was on every card at least 3 or 4 fighters that seemed like had never fought before. So you had to watch, some of these fights on YouTube where I watched a fight one time where you have a referee, he's in a walking boot. I mean, the crazy stuff going on. A fighter walking out to the ring, he ends up fainting. we've seen that also happen, in the UFC. But
Yeah.
crazy things that the competition is good, but you can also see some things. You can get some guys before the public gets on them, and there's some great fighters coming up. You watch the Contender Series. We gave out 3 cards there. We were able to find some things in the Contender Series and some of these first or second fights of these fighters, because the camps that they've been in. You watch them, you just tell they're a cut above, or in some cases not ready to fight. They were rushed along, or maybe had to fight on 3 or 4 days notice, and doing that is very, very tough. So I like to take my time. There's some people out there betting every fight. If you're looking for every fight on the card, that's not me. I'm going to give you fights that I am personally wagering on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we're going to have a great special for you at the end of the interview with Lee here, our handicapping segment, Cage Side Seat on MMA Weekly. And Lee, can't wait to get to that Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington fight in just a few minutes. But first, let's start it off on the prelims. In the bantamweight division, Andre Ewell against Irwin Rivera. Ewell, a -220 favorite. Obviously, that means you got to bet 220 to win 100 on him.
Okay, so normally I'm not going to lay anywhere more than 240, 250 on a fight. But this might be a fight you want to lay the lumber. Ewell is much more talented and skilled. He's got a 7-inch, sometimes you'll see a 3, 4, maybe 5-inch reach advantage. He's got a 7-inch reach advantage. I just think this is a different class of fighter here. So I don't like to lay, big odds, because if you lose, it's like losing a little more than two wagers. If you're laying 220 to win 100, if you lose, you're losing pretty big. So I just think this fight might be over pretty quick. It's just the talent level is just at a different, you got one fighter that's moving up, another fighter. I don't know if he's going to be there much longer. I'm going to lay the 220 and take Andre Ewell in this fight.
Yeah, man, what a great sport. It is so much fun when you have a little action on it, too. And we're going to tell you how you can get in on it with Lee's picks. Again, he's won 16 of 19 fight cards this year for his customers at ParamountSports.com. Jim Grieshaber, Lee Sterling, Cage Side Seat on MMA Weekly. Our next one, Lee, is in the flyweight division. The King, Triple C, saved it. Henry Cejudo, my buddy. And now here it is, flourishing and thriving again. And I'm very excited for this fight. A couple of guys that not a lot of people know a lot about, but man, David Dvorak and Jordan Espinosa, -110 for Dvorak.
I watched him, and he seems like he's getting better. There's some fighters that are older, or you can just kind of figure out, you see that they just get, it's like quarterbacks in the NFL. When the green light comes on, you don't want to go against them. This is one of those kids that is getting better each fight. I do see improvement. 1-0 in the UFC, so very, very green, but 14 wins in a row. So it's not like he's the guy that hasn't fought and he's coming from another sport or anything. So I just think that Espinosa, 15-7 overall, I mean, he barely beat Mark De La Rosa. Mm-hmm. I just think that Dvorak can beat him in more ways here. So I'm going to lay it's practically a pick 'em. Dvorak's -110. I think he gets the win here over Jordan Espinosa.
Yeah, the one big knock on Dvorak has been his lack of competition at the highest of levels so far, but a lot of big finishes, a lot of talent there for Dvorak. Looking for him to get that win over Espinosa as well. Next one is a girl I've known a long time from Arizona, from the MMA lab for a while there, and they weren't the biggest fans of hers at the time, but she's moved around a bit. She's become a mom, which has helped her a lot. And I'm very excited for this one to see how far Mackenzie Dern has come, because she's going to get a bit of a test here. And I'm very just kind of like, I don't know, I mean, Mackenzie Dern's an enigma to me. Her stand-up, her MMA overall, punching and striking into takedowns, and her takedowns themselves, not as fluid, not as great as you would want to see. And again, a jiu-jitsu world champion, so when she gets you on the ground, it's lights out and you're toast. But Mackenzie Dern has been getting so much better at so many of the other elements of the game, and she will fight at women's strawweight against Randa Marcos this weekend. And Mackenzie Dern, obviously a big favorite in this fight.
I think she's going to outgrapple Marcos. I think Marcos is tough, but I just think that it's a fight that's probably going to go the distance like so many women's fights do, and she's just tougher. And the farther she gets away from having the child, I think it's helped her. And I just think that Randa Marcos doesn't have a whole lot of tools to work with to win this fight. So she's going to maybe have to land a lucky blow, or she's going to have to pull a submission to beat Mackenzie Dern. I'm going to lay the 170. I like Mackenzie Dern here.
When in doubt, go with the grappler, right? Mackenzie Dern leaves no doubt whenever she gets a takedown and brings an opponent to the ground. It's almost always finito right there for Mackenzie Dern's opponents. All right, next up at light heavyweight on the men's side, Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann. Johnny Walker at -120. Enigmatic, came in like gangbusters, really cocky, just really marketable, putting his name and himself out there, and people falling in love with Johnny Walker. And Ryan Spann, some big-time finishes, both guys as well. But Johnny Walker against a guy like Corey Anderson, for example, got a little too flashy, a little too fancy maybe, and he got beat up, and he's been beaten up a couple of times. So Johnny Walker looking to get back into the win column against Ryan Spann.
The problem with Johnny Walker is, he does some dumb things. He sometimes starts, getting full of himself, and it's all about fighting and winning. And, you don't get style points. So I like the fact that he changed camps. I think it's going to help him. And he went over to SBG. I think that, they trained Conor McGregor, Gunnar Nelson. I think that's going to help him he'll maybe pick up a new trick or two. And I think that might be the difference here. Now, Ryan Spann, he's knocked out some guys, but some of the guys are has-beens. And he had a split decision over Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey,
Another buddy of mine, Sam Alvey, he's like punching an oak tree. I'll say that for Sam.
And he just hangs around. But you got to get you got to either take out Alvey, or you got to get you can't have a split decision. You got to win almost every round. So the weakness here was that he's got good ground tactics, but he's going to have to find some ways to get inside Walker. Walker, he's just a little quicker than Spann, and I think it's going to be a tight fight. But I think the Walker, like one of these guys that's ascending. Spann, I don't know if he's reached maybe his level where he's probably tapped out. So tough fight, but I like Walker here -120.
Yeah, man, and you got to root for Johnny Walker. Great dude, a lot of fun to watch as well, and you and I on the same page so far on every pick. Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, right here, cage side seat on MMA Weekly, the best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport from the best seat in the house. And don't forget, Lee's going to give you a special picks package that you can purchase from him. Guaranteed winners, almost as close as you can get right here on the show. And man, I'm very excited, Lee, to keep this relationship going. But I want to let everybody know, too, that you can stack these bets a little bit and throw some parlays down. Maybe you want to pick the round that the fight's going to end in, or how it's going to end. TKO, submission, split decision, unanimous decision. You can kind of stack it up depending upon who you think's going to win, when you think they're going to win, and how you think they're going to win. Just stack it up and make a lot more money betting on these fights and having some fun at the same time. Our next one in the middleweight division, Khamzat Chimaev. He won 2 fights in 10 days in 2 weight classes earlier this summer, which led Dana White to book him twice. Not a lot of people happy about that. He takes on Gerald Meerschaert, and a -400 favorite is Chimaev in this one.
So here's what I see in this fight. Chimaev he's a 170. He's a welterweight. He's fighting at 185. And there's some guys sometimes that get caught. Just the difference. You would think that the great fighters would be able to overcome it, but sometimes they can't, especially early in their career. He fought 2 tomato cans. Didn't fight guys that were decent at all. And you're going to have to finish Meerschaert. This is a tough guy. You're not going to knock him out with one punch. He might be able to withstand, a really good punch that some of these other guys can't. I just don't know if Chimaev, I love him. I think he's great. But this is the fight he might have some problems. Meerschaert lost to Santos, really good fighter. Hermanson, and he lost to Holland and Anderson split decisions. He has some fights where he looks really good, and I think that he's going to be up for this fight. This is a fight you don't have to put a regular wager on. So let's say you're normally a $100 wager person. You can put like $50 on this. If he wins, he's plus 330. Chimaev's -400. Mm-hmm. If he wins the fight at $50, you're going to pay back $160, $170. So I like Meerschaert here. I think this is one of those fights you take a shot on. He might land a punch. We've seen a couple of these fighters that are really good. They're just not ready yet. I'm going to take my shot on Meerschaert here, plus 330.
Oh, boy, can't wait for this one. Next up at welterweight, the one and only Cowboy Cerrone. So many fights in the octagon, 50-plus as a pro. The great striker, good at jiu-jitsu, huge wins in his career over champions like Benson Henderson and so many others. And Cowboy Cerrone fighting Conor McGregor, not looking good his last time out, but over the years has beaten a who's who of MMA and UFC superstars. And, obviously Cowboy Cerrone, a little bit older, people talking about him after the McGregor fight, but still dangerous in any fight that he takes. And he's back at welterweight this time, like he was against Conor McGregor, against Nico Price. Nico, 14-4, has also had some impressive wins in his career, big-time wins over guys like Tim Means, a guy who I'm very impressed by, and Tim Means is a guy I've known a long time. So some big wins for Price. Cerrone, obviously one of the greats and a future Hall of Famer, minus 160, Nico Price here.
Okay, so here's the problem, and I love Cowboy Cerrone, one of my favorite fighters. I mean, I get juiced up when he fights. I think his reflexes are shot, number one. And I think his chin is suspect now. I just don't think he can take that punch. Whereas 4 or 5 years ago, not saying, he just shrugs off a punch, but now that punch that maybe would have shaken him, it takes him down, and then the fighter takes him out. Nico Price is a big guy, and he's a monster puncher. And so sometimes the strength of one fighter really works against the weakness of the other. Cerrone if he fought a guy that's more of a grappler, I think he'd have a better chance. But I think Nico Price is the right side here, minus 160.
I'm with you, man. Your heart always says Cowboy, but man, Nico Price is a stud, and this is a tough fight for Cowboy Cerrone. All right, Lee, here we are. Let's get to the main event. It's Lee Sterling of Paramount Sports, cage side seat on MMA Weekly, the best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport from the best seat in the house. I'm Jim Grieshaber, and again, at the end of the picks, we're going to give you a special package you can purchase from Lee Sterling. He's won 16 of 19 fight cards this year with the UFC. As good of odds as anybody to win you money right here every week in our show, cage side seat on MMA Weekly. All right, Lee, let's get to the main event, man. Can't wait for this one. The former champ, the chosen one, Tyron Woodley, dominating the welterweight division for a long time until he ran into Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns, who will fight for the title later this year. And those two guys are obviously the two best welterweights in the world right now. Arguably, with Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley struggled in lopsided losses where he was dominated by Kamaru Usman to lose his belt, and then trying to get back on the horse earlier this year against Gilbert Burns, and he was dominated on the feet by a guy he was expected to outclass striking. So Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley, these two guys don't like each other at all. You've got MAGA, you've got Black Lives Matter, you've got these two guys just staring each other down. The venom coming between the two of them, from the two of them toward one another, is just unbelievable. So you have all the drama around this fight. You have Woodley striking and wrestling. You have Covington striking and wrestling. He's actually changed his stance for this fight. His coaches say he has more power. They do not like each other one bit. Colby Covington, obviously a big favorite in this fight over Tyron Woodley.
If you are going to play the favorite here, you don't want to play it, straight up. You want to put it in a parlay. What you can do is you can limit your losses if for some reason they lose. Like, I'm going to put Nico Price and Colby Covington together.
Okay.
Price is minus 160. Covington is minus 360. I will never play a minus above 300 favorite by themselves, because you lose a fight like that, it destroys your whole card, destroys your whole night. So put him in a parlay, and I think he's a phenomenal striker. People forget this is a high-class level wrestler. He started off wrestling at Arizona State, gets kicked out. Iowa, kicked out, goes to Oregon State, finally somehow manages to last 2 years there without getting expelled. It was at the time the Pac-10, now it's the Pac-12 champion twice. So, he throws so many blows, and he throws them so hard. I mean, it was, like I said, it was an eyelash. You could have gone either way with Usman. In that fight, he attempted 395 strikes. Lawler fight, 541 strikes. That's unheard of. So he's a high-level volume puncher. He is a phenomenal wrestler, but he's gone more to his striking. I think it's, maybe it's his image, trying to get the knockout. I think he's going to do whatever he has to do to win this fight. Loved Woodley as a fighter, and he was a winner. But the bottom line is he's boring. So he's not a real exciting fighter. And the last fight that he dominated or won 3 fights ago, he's lost not only 2 fights, he's lost all 5 rounds in both fights. It wasn't even close here. So against Usman, landed just 34 significant blows. And against Burns, 28 blows. He just, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's the weight cut. I don't know whether, what was going on in his life, but he was not the same fighter the last 2 fights. Now, if he comes out and he looks like before those 2 fights, he might have a shot. But until I see differently, I'm going to go with Colby Covington. And like I said, I'm going to play him in a parlay with Nico Price because he's minus 360.
Man, that's a big winner. Nico Price and Colby Covington, minus 160, minus 360, rolling them into a parlay. Big cash waiting for you if that one comes through. Speaking of which, Lee, it's time to let the cat out of the bag. It's time to let everybody know here in the audience how they can get involved with what you're doing, how they can get your picks this week and go into battle armed, just like a fighter into the octagon when they know they've trained everything. They know they have the best coaches. They have all the knowledge, all the wisdom to go get that victory. This is what you're doing for our audience on the handicapping side. Let everybody know what that special package is, how they can get it, and what the deal is with all that.
Okay, so we've won 15 of the 19 fights that we put out since they came back in May. And I feel really good about this fight. I've got 7 selections that I've picked out for your listeners. They want to jump on board. They will get all 7 selections. I rate my selections from 10 to 50 units. That way they know how strong to bet these wagers.
Can you explain that a little more, just so people can get the gist of that?
So let's say a normal wager is a 25-unit selection. That's considered a normal selection for me. If you're normally a $100 wagerer, you should wager $100 on my 25-unit plays. If I give you a 30-unit play, that's a play you probably go, let's say, 120 or 125 on. I have, for only the 4th time since the fights came back, a 50-unit selection. My 40 to 50 unit plays are very, very rare. We've won all 4 of them. And in fact, none of the fights have gone to a decision. So I'm so sure I'm going to win this 50 unit selection. If I don't win it, you'll get the following week free. So if they go to Paramount Sports, 7 selections, $77. And if we don't win this week, our 50 unit selection and have a winning card, doesn't mean win 4 out of 7. We've got to make you money because some of the plays that I'm playing are favorites. So if a big favorite was to lose in one of the fights, we could possibly, with a winning record, lose money. If we don't win you money and win the 50-unit selection, you get the following week for free. The website is ParamountSports.com. You can order it that way, or you can call our office, 800-400-9741. Again, the website, ParamountSports.com. On the homepage where it says Purchase Picks, just click on there, purchase picks there, or call us at the office, 800-400-9741. I also do football. I'm a former college football player. This is my 27th year in business. So if anyone's looking for advice on football, we won the first week. We went 2-1, 7-5 last week. You can purchase my plays also through the website, ParamountSports.com.
7 for $77. Those picks right there. Winners from Lee Sterling, ParamountSports.com. Right here, cage side seat on MMA Weekly, the best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport. From the best seat in the house, Lee Sterling, one of the greatest handicappers in the business. Anything else you want to say to the fans here and our audience before we let you go? Now's the time, brother.
That's it. Let me also give you my Twitter handle. It's at Paramount Sports. So as the fights are going on, if you want to DM me, ask me any question, I'd be more than happy to give you some advice. And I like, the banner going back and forth. MMA fans are some of the most knowledgeable that are out there and passionate too. So hope to be out there. I'm in Miami. We've had some fights down here in Miami, Fort Lauderdale before the pandemic, but I'm going to be out there early and often once this is all over. So so we can get together and get in one of the sports bars the night before and meet some of the fans and have some fun seeing some fights live.
All right, there you have it, fight fans. That's Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, ParamountSports.com, one of the best handicappers in the country every week right here, cage side seat on MMA Weekly, the best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport from the best seat in the house. I'm Jim Grieshaber. Can't wait for UFC Vegas 11. Colby Covington, Tyron Woodley. Man, these two guys can't stand each other. They're two of the best welterweights in the world. Woodley, a legendary champion, and they can always dial it back and come up with an amazing performance on any given night. Covington came this close to winning the belt last December against Kamaru Usman, and he is getting back in there against Tyron Woodley in Vegas. They don't like each other. There's so many storylines here. Can't wait for that one. Lee Sterling, Paramount Sports, thank you so much for being here. Man, 7 picks for $77. That is unbelievable for our audience to have that opportunity. Very excited to be working with you again, my friend. We'll see you next week right here on MMA Weekly with Cage Side Seat.
Thanks, Jim, for having me on, and look forward to talking to you next week.
There it is, fight fans. Unbelievable week ahead of us. UFC Vegas 11 before the Ultimate Fighting Championship heads back across the ocean to go to Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. Unbelievable fights lined up there, including Paulo Costa and Israel Adesanya, two undefeated superstars for the middleweight belt, and Khabib Nurmagomedov against Justin Gaethje. Speaking of undefeated stars, Khabib Nurmagomedov putting that record and that belt on the line against the highlight, who's been on a major roll lately, and of course Brian Ortega against the Korean Zombie. So many big fights coming up on Fight Island before the UFC comes back in November. Big interviews coming up here soon as well, including Paulo Costa, Captain Eric Albarracin, his coach, and many more. Cage side seat on MMA Weekly. You know where to find us. The best MMA talk with the biggest names in the sport from the best seat in the house. I'm Jim Grieshaber saying keep your game tight and your mind right, guys. Enjoy UFC Vegas 11 this weekend.